Welcome, impactful parents. Today we're going to be talking about parenting a disabled child. Hello, my name is Christina Campos. I'm founder of The Impactful Parent, and I help parents of school age children who want to be one step ahead of their kids to turn their chaos into connection with their adolescent. I'm a mom of four, a teacher that's taught every grade from preschool through high school. And today I help moms and dads like yourself to navigate that exhausting, confusing, frustrating, but rewarding world of parenting. So, welcome to The Impactful Parent. And today I have a special guest. Her name is Kelley Coleman. And Kelley is a mom of two amazing boys, one of whom has multiple disabilities. For parents of disabled children, navigating the system and services and supports that is needed is extremely daunting and often an overwhelming task. So, Kelley wrote this book to help parents, and it's called Everything No One Tells You About Parenting a Disabled Child, Your Guide to Essential System Services and Supports. Now, her book is a tremendous resource for parents who care for disabled children. So I'm having her on the show today to talk about her personal experiences as a mom and then also give us some advice nuggets on parenting a disabled child. So thank you for being here, Kelley.
Thank you so much for having me and for everything that you are doing. I love just the idea of impactful parenting. And I'm not going to lie, I tear up when I've been listening to your podcast sometimes because I feel like I have two boys, one's disabled, one is not. And it is such a different path to feeling like I am making an impact and making the right impact on each of my kids and having to pivot constantly from this parenting hat to this parenting hat and then I'm putting on a different hat that covers both of them now. So I love your universe of what you're doing.
So, as we get started with this conversation today, and we're talking about parents with disabled children, and tell me who do we classify? Who are we talking to in that? What's our spectrum look like?
We're talking to an enormous number of parents. If we're looking at statistics in the US, 1 in 4 adults has a disability, is disabled. 1 in 6 children will be diagnosed with a developmental disability. 1 in 33 children, according to the CDC, are born with a birth defect. I hate the word defect, but there you go. Um, it disability impacts approximately 1 in 3 households. So if this is not your household, it's your neighbors on the left or on the right.
Now, I'd love to hear about your story because you're here for a reason, and I'd love people to identify with you. So, tell us about your family.
Yes. So as you mentioned, I have two amazing boys. Their ages 11 and 13, and they're both hilarious and brilliant and goofballs and climb all over each other and are the best of friends. Our older son does magic and plays the tuba, so maybe not what we expected there. Our younger son, who is obsessed with airplanes and going to the grocery store, also not what we expected because you know what? We don't have any control in this parenting thing. We're just like making it up as we go along. Aaron, our younger son, also has multiple disabilities. They started presenting immediately after birth. We had no idea any of this was coming prenatally. And he has been diagnosed with many things in the last 11 years. He has a yet undiagnosed genetic syndrome. And within that umbrella, has been diagnosed with autism, epilepsy, cerebral palsy, cortical vision impairment, microcephaly. He has a feeding tube, fine motor delays, gross motor delays. He communicates mostly not with mouth words, with the device, and has sensory processing, auditory process, like all the things. He's an overachiever. And he's like, I'm just going to check all the boxes. And we're like, cool, let's figure this out together. So we really did not have a frame of reference for disability, for parenting that entailed medical needs, behavioral needs, cognitive, physical, like the whole gamut of everything. And really started out this journey with this feeling of total inadequacy because no one knows how to call their insurance company, much less do seizure first aid when they know nothing about epilepsy. Um, so we have really had to figure it out as we've been going along. And I loved your episode that you did not too long ago. It was just a brief one. Everybody go listen about parenting from love and parenting from fear. And it was so great for many reasons. And it was not shaming anyone for coming from a place of fear because, man, I get that and I feel that. And for many of us who are parenting kids with disabilities, especially those of us who, like me, are not disabled ourselves, there is so much fear coming from people telling you, I'm so sorry. This is so tragic. How are you going to do this? From these like horrible representations in media. Um, we're just not getting this real information and we are feeling inadequate and we are coming from this place of fear. And that's why I wrote the book. It's why I have these conversations because we need to get real information that we can understand and use. And exactly like you said, then we can look at where our fear is actually coming from. And ironically, it's because we love our kids so much. And really saying, what is the information I need to not be so afraid? And it's a big boulder to push uphill.
I'm so happy that you referenced that because it's such a great episode, it really is. And, we all parent from fear. We
Yes.
all do it
Mhm.
because of the grand love for our
Yes.
children.
Yes.
Like, it's such a our heart's in a good place,
Hmm.
but, no good deed goes unpunished kind of
Yep.
thing, and, you definitely go check out that episode, you guys, if you have not already, and I can totally empathize that this realm of parenting would be just full of fearfulness, as is to the LGBTQ, as I can relate to. It's
Yes.
full of fearful,
Yes.
parenting, and so, I just yep, I get that. I get
Yes.
that a
Well,
lot.
and I love that you brought that up because many of us are not part of a community that our child is part of, whether that is because of ability, LGBTQ status, race, religion. Like it can be so many things. And especially when our child is part of a marginalized group that we are not a part of, that we are on our own journey of figuring out how to best support our children as the fullest version of who they are, knowing that if you are in a marginalized group, there are things that will be harder, that might be unsafe, that you are going to have to think about differently when you are walking into certain rooms. And we want our children to push the easy button on everything. And when we realize, oh, that's not an option, and they have to walk that path with us supporting them, it is a lot to figure out how exactly to best support them.
So beautifully said. I know, I'm like, "That's it.
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head." I mean, and it's being brave enough to admit that you're scared and need to go get as much help as possible in order to not be scared anymore. But
Yes.
that step, for whatever reason, is freaking hard.
It's so
Like
hard. Oh my gosh. And I'll tell you, like, we could call this episode all the ways Kelly screwed up. I'm doing pretty well now, but we'll see. Uh, one of the biggest things, and I'm sure you've seen this in your own parenting experience, is it took me way too long to get the memo to learn about disability from disabled people. And I realized all of my information for a very long time was coming from people who aren't disabled themselves. So you're getting euphemisms and oh, and the look, and like disabled people are out there living their lives and leading organizations and companies and just being people in the world. And when we can learn about people from people in that group, oh my goodness, it makes life easier.
Yeah, it certainly does. Now, I would like to know what was the most shocking thing for you as a new mom of a disabled child?
So, as I mentioned, our journey started when our son was newborn. From day one, I had a feeling that something was going on and he was passing the tests. And so nobody believed me. Turns out I was right. There's been a lot that has been surprising, shocking, all the things. Number one is I did not realize my own internalized ableism. I would have said before my kids were born, well, of course I'm great with disabled people. Of course they should be included. Of course, all these things. If that was actually true, I would not have been terrified when our son started accumulating diagnoses. And I realized just the extent to which all of these things were buried in me that I need to like figure out because my kid is awesome. So, the degree to which I needed to dig down and unpack my own stuff was enormous. And the degree to which ableism shows up in the world around us, and even some of the people who are closest to us, who we thought would be the most supportive, were super freaked out that we had a disabled kid and were not showing up as we would have imagined and in ways we needed, even if we were
God, how disappointing and
vocalizing.
heartbreaking for
Yes.
you. I'm
And
sorry about that.
thank you. And I have heard that experience over and over from other parents.
Mhm.
I have also heard, which is our experience, unexpected people show up for you, sometimes literally at your door, um, who you wouldn't expect. And some people really do come out of the woodwork to just say, I don't know what to do, don't know what to say, but I'm here. Can I bring you fancy coffee? Yes, you can bring me a fancy coffee. Um, it will be a journey for forever. I know I will be learning this forever. And the lack of disability representation, I've realized just harms us all and really puts us in this place of fear, which is just kind of gross.
Yeah, and there's no words for any of that. Like, that's just you're just telling it like it is. That's just
Yes.
talking real. I mean,
Mhm.
it's life-changing stuff, and parent a new baby's life-changing enough, but
Yes.
this is at a different level.
It is at a different level, and when we are able to connect with other families who are walking a similar path,
Mhm.
my kid might literally be the only one in the world with his specific genetic diagnosis, so we're not looking for people on an identical path, but when we are connecting with others with similar experience, we can really find the things that work that make it easy. Like, we just need life to be easier for everybody. Um, when we are connecting with other people, we are also able to connect with the fact that my kid himself and who he is as a human isn't the issue and the challenge and the hard thing. Like, he's awesome. The 14 calls I made to medical supply companies yesterday, like, that's hard, that's
Mhm.
not awesome, and that is a tremendous amount of time, and we're really able to separate and look at the job of caregiving versus parenting. And caregiving for so many of us with disabled kids, especially those of us whose kids do have high support needs, who need full time, 24/7 care and supervision, whose care needs will be lifelong. It is a job, and we need to look at caregiving as a job, not just to like get the stuff done, but also so that we can do the things and we can be done with the job for the day and spend that afternoon or evening just being parents and enjoying our kids exactly as they are.
Yeah. And your book is gonna help with that, which we're gonna get to in a minute. And I feel like, as we're talking, like, this is definitely a leveling up type of parenting, but kid you not that every child will at some point make you level up in their journey of just growing. Um, you just had your level up right away from the get-go.
Yes.
But for each one of my kids, it was at a different time in their life where something came extremely challenging and we all had to level up.
Mhm.
And it is what it is. Like, that's it's just a different level of parenting that you need to step up to because the universe, God, whoever you wanna,
Mhm.
this is you, this is for you, and what are we gonna learn from it? How are we gonna, react to it? How are we gonna, you
Yes.
know how can we take this information and make it awesome and learn
Yeah.
something? Or are we gonna, wallow in our sorrows and do that? So,
Yes, and so many people do, and we're hearing so much of and I'm sure you've heard different versions of this. Like, I don't know how you're doing this. I could never do that.
oh,
And it's
yes.
like, actually, you do know how I'm doing this, and it's that I love my kid, so I'm doing everything within my power to support my kid, and that is exactly what you would do in this situation. And you would do it because you have to. So,
Yeah.
you know exactly. I can't imagine. Yes, you can. You're imagining it right now while you're saying that, and you're judging. Like, what?
Yeah, you step up because you just do, because
Yes,
it's your turn. I don't know how else to
thank
explain
you.
it.
That's so well said. That's exactly it. Yep.
Well, I'd also like to know in this process, what was your biggest learning curve for caring for your disabled child?
The biggest learning curve, I mean, number one, like years without sleep is no joke. So, number one, to just add to all of the learning curve is if we're not sleeping, we don't function, and many families are dealing with that chronically, so give yourself some grace there. And the learning curve of the job of caregiving is so steep and will always be. For one of my kids, like, I make him a sandwich and send him on his way to school, and we're good. For the other one, who's amazing and loves school and has friends and all the things, I'm having to figure out neurology, genetics, gastroenterology, developmental pediatrics, medical supply companies, insurance, specialized insurance coverage, future care plans, financial plans for the future, laws, advocacy, IEPs, that's a plan for your school day, what the school day looks like, going to medical appointments, finding specialists, all the different therapies, how to know when the therapy isn't the right thing. I could go on, but holy cow, that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that sounds exhausting. I'm
Yes,
tired listening to you. I'm like, wow.
yes.
No, so
It
much.
is it is exhausting, and I love that you just said that and that we can laugh about that because, like, we have to laugh about all of this,
Yes,
otherwise
you
we'll
have
just go
to.
back, and I've been real close. Um, we take it one thing at a time. We
Mhm.
do the best we can in the moment. There are definitely things I look back on in our journey. There's nothing I think that I've just screwed up horrendously, but there absolutely are things that looking back, if I had different knowledge, I would have done differently. And the bottom line for any parent is knowing that we are doing the best in any given moment. And then if you learn better, the next time, do better. And it's okay to say, I have new information, so I am feeling differently, doing differently, acting differently. And what a gift to ourselves and our kids and the world to be able to say, I'm going to grow from this.
I wanna ask you a little bit about meeting a mom with a disabled child.
Mhm,
because I think many parents don't know what to say and
mhm,
certainly don't want to say anything wrong.
mhm.
And what do you want to tell parents about this interaction that is so often very awkward?
Super awkward.
Um, because that way we can start off on the right foot.
Mhm. Yes, so it certainly depends on the moment and the interaction. There are times when you could look at me and you can be real sure that I don't need any interaction. I'm just trying to keep all the balls in the air. And we often end up interacting with other parents because our kids are interacting. Whether it is my very enthusiastic son running up to your child and waving and waving and waving and saying, "Hello, what's your name?" on his communication device, or whether it's your kid is staring at my kid. Like, no one is surprised when that happens. Kids are curious. Kids most adults even have never seen a feeding tube, much less know what that is. We can be curious about one another and we can invite that curiosity in a very human and very respectful way. If your kid is staring at my kid and you're doing the don't stare and shuffling your kid away, what that is teaching is, oh my gosh, we can't acknowledge that we see disability. We got to pretend it's not there. My kid's disabilities are visible. That means you can look at him and safely assume he is disabled. He is. Many kids and adults' disabilities are not visible. You won't look at them and know what is going on the inside. Um, I get that your kid is curious about my kid. If you see, us having lunch and he has his feeding tube and your kid is staring, you could say, "Oh, I see you're curious about that. It looks like that's how he's eating. How cool is that?" And you can give your kids the language to be curious and respectful. If I tell you one of my kids is disabled in the course of conversation, don't do the like cock your head and like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Um, Nobody wants to hear that you're sorry about their kid. Um, you can acknowledge that. You can say, "Oh, what's that like? What's that like for you?" You could even say, "I want to say something. That's not my experience. I don't know exactly what to say, but I am curious about you and about your family." We should never expect anyone to be obligated to share their personal medical information or their child's medical information. So if someone doesn't volunteer that, the hey, what's wrong with your kid is actually none of your business. And that's okay, but just come at it from the place of being curious, not apologizing for what a tragedy this kid is because they're a wheelchair user. Just say, "Oh, hey, I'm curious about that. Oh, that's cool." Um, and also not the, "Wow, your kid is a superhero because he left the house in his disabled body. That's amazing. He went to the grocery store." Like, yuck. Nope. He's just a kid who likes the grocery store. Um, we can all really start from seeing disability as not tragic and not heroic. It just is. It's just part of life. And if you see a kid having a meltdown or behaving a way that seems out of the ordinary to you in public, the telling the parents, and so many parents get this, to control their kid, to quiet their kid, that they're a terrible parent, like giving them the evil eye. Like, that is never welcome or helpful. And this actually might be that family's very best public interaction ever. This might be a huge success, or it might be a huge failure. When my kid is squealing in the library, when he is squealing and cheering at an quote unquote inappropriate moment in the movie theater, it's not something he can control. It's part of who he is. Know that for me personally, I won't apologize when my child is doing nothing wrong. Yep, he might be noisy in the library. That's just who he is. Instead of apologizing, I'll say thank you for understanding. because really we just all need to approach one another from a place of curiosity and understanding.
So, one last question for you regarding that, and then we're going to talk about your book because it's going to be an amazing resource for parents. Uh, but if your first interaction, you're meeting a mom, you see that, like you said, maybe one of her children, and maybe she has multiple, is having some difficulty. She has to tend to that. Is it appropriate for us to offer help?
Yes, absolutely. And to just say, "Hey, do you need anything? Hey, can I put that thing in your grocery cart for you?" Absolutely. The thing that is appropriate to offer help for is, we'll say, mom. You are helping that mom. You are not here to help their poor disabled kid. Oh, you poor thing.
Mm,
Nope.
thank you for
You're
that
here
distinction.
to, yes, to say to the mom, "Hey, let me get that door for you." Because sometimes, my kiddo is a part-time wheelchair user. Sometimes I've got, like, the stroller wheelchair contraption and a bag of groceries and the service dog, and he just flung his communication device over here, and, "Yes, you can get the door for me. Thank you."
Yeah. I love thank you for that because I think that's, just trying to make these awkward situations less awkward and
Yes,
honestly more talked about. Just having this conversation and
yes.
candidly saying, this just is how it is,
Mhm.
this is what the world needs more of.
Yes.
And I'm excited to, invite you back onto the Impactful Parent. To do some more episodes with us. So if this episode resonates with the listeners, please come back as I'm hoping that Kelley can be a reoccurring guest here and give us some more actual real tidbits and like great pieces of nuggets of things that we have to know and kind of information for our future episodes. But today, I just really wanted you to get to know Kelley, who she is, where she's coming from, and she has this amazing book, which you just have to get. If you've resonated with anything in this episode, you got to grab this book with her. So let's talk a little bit about that real quick. It's called Everything No One Tells You About Parenting a Disabled Child, Your Guide to Essential System Services and Supports. Okay, why do parents need this book?
Because no one knows how to call their insurance company. It's awful. Um, this is the how to guide for the job of caregiving. It has personal stories, letters from fellow parents, the basics on all the different topics from financial planning, IEPs, working with your medical team, what this looks like for you as a parent caregiver, therapies, all the things. It has the basics, it has worksheets and checklists and what you can do right now and what worked for us. And my personal favorite part, it has interviews with over 40 experts, very many of whom are disabled themselves. And I am learning much of this along with my audience. And I am so grateful to all of these experts who really believed in this project and believed that parents need information they can understand and use and act on. And it's written like a conversation. It's weirdly fun and funny. And if it didn't read like a conversation, I think the book would fail because nobody wants something that is dry or academic or medical speak or legal speak. Yuck. Like most of us don't want to read that. They want a conversation. And so this is really your starting point for figuring out how to do the stuff better and with less time, less money, less stress. So you can spend less time with the paperwork and more time just loving your kid exactly as they are.
I love that. I have not heard of that in this realm of books, of parenting books. So this is going to be fantastic for the audience. How, though, can one book really be relevant for all these families, like
Yes.
everywhere across the United States and in the world, really? And there's so many disabilities. I mean, we can't even
Mhm.
name them all. So how do you justify that?
Yes, I love that question. And Because our son checks so many boxes, we personally have a lot of experience in many different areas. This book is not a here is exactly the playbook on exactly what to do, because even within the same disability categories, there are a zillion variations based on disability or family or location and everything else. This is a guide for what questions do you need to ask? Where do you find your resources in your area? And how do you build the journey that works for you and your child and your family? And each person's version of that and read of this book will be very different, because I wanted us all to have the same basis of foundational information so we can build the appropriate journey for our particular situation.
Where can we find this jewel?
Oh, thank you. You can find the book everywhere that books are sold: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, your local bookseller. My website, of course, has links. It's kelleycoleman.com. That's Kelley, Coleman. And I really look forward to hearing from people. I've heard some really amazing stories from parents who are putting this into action already.
Well, Kelley, I hope everybody goes and grabs that and comes back again to our future episodes with you, because I just think you're fantastic and parents need this so badly. And yeah, go get the book. It's going to be great. Tell me one last thing that you'd like the parents just to be aware of, or possibly just a takeaway that you think that they need to have from today's episode.
Yes. So for parents, especially the ones who are at or towards the beginning of this journey, however you are feeling, sit in that, validate that, feel however you need to feel. For me, I felt really awful for a long time. I didn't need to just cheer up. I didn't need to just change my mindset. I needed to learn an enormous amount of information that started with just how do I keep my kid alive. So start wherever you are. Don't shame yourself or tell yourself you shouldn't feel this way, and connect with other families as early as you can. Those families will be sometimes quite literally a lifeline to you and your child.
I'm glad you came here today. Begin your Impactful Parent journey by downloading the Impactful Parent app. The Impactful Parent app is free so that you can carry help, tips, and parenting resources right in your pocket. Discover answers to your parenting questions and download the app today. It's free, so go to your phone's app store and discover how you can step up your parenting game and become a more impactful parent. Also, remember that this episode is just a small part of what the Impactful Parent offers. Also available are online courses, parent support groups, coaching services, and of course, the Impactful Parent app. So find out more by going to theimpactfulparent.com. But until next time, you got this. I'm just here to help.